I'm Colin Christianson here with Tenacious Ventures, where we do live interactive video, and we are pulling in some guests so we can show off who is here at the NWES conference and show. So I have with me David Nance with DJN Media. And so sounds like he's a really community-driven sort of guy. So tell us more about the project you're working on and a little bit about yourself.
Thanks. So I'm David. I have been a filmmaker and probably all-around video producer here in Washington State for over 20 years. And I moved up here from Texas as an actor, trying to find work, thinking it might have been a stepping stone onto LA or to larger markets. And I've just been here this whole time working with a lot of independent filmmakers and learning quite a bit. Mm-hmm. And throughout this time and throughout my whole experience, I've kind of noticed one thing, like a major common thread, is that there's a lot of passionate people here who have really great ideas, but it doesn't tend to get out to the broader public because we don't have that connection. Or B, we have those great ideas, we just don't know how to carry them through.
Yeah.
And so I created my company through multiple factors of working with a lot of independent producers, getting more in connection. And then I'm also part of the Seattle Film Summit as well. And noticing we have a huge community that we could really integrate with and make some really great stuff if we know how, and have those connections on how to go about doing it. So my new concept that I'm trying to come up with is basically like a Washington's own film franchise. So think MCU, but it's not done in LA. It's not done anywhere else. It's not just an idea that we just throw to Netflix and they go off to Albuquerque or wherever. They do it here.
So
using the people we hear.
just so everybody knows, what is MCU?
MCU being the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Great.
Marvel being one of the companies doing that, but now in Hollywood, it's really become a standard process to not just make a one-off film. That each of these IPs, now they call it a narrative film, is no longer just a film, and it now becomes also a film and a series, and it's just a commercial venture.
Yeah.
That's there to drive product sales more than anything, rather than tell a story.
So essentially, yeah, with that then, what you're talking about up here, is that kind of like a collective of like almost like an open source system where you have like a group of people creating IP and then kind of building this overall IP base up and collaborating together? Or is it separate or different than that?
It's definitely open source. And the one thing that we're also trying to do within the Seattle Film Summit is understand not only our connection with all the artists that we have here, but we're in the tech hub. We have people here who can help us filmmakers on more of the tech side, to do more of the connection, to really not maybe be so scared of AI, but maybe understand that it is a tool that if we can understand it better, we can use it in a more transparent way in order to help us be more productive as artists.
Yeah, when I even see the point there about, because I've done the same thing, gone back and forth to how much AI could end up taking away our industry versus complementing it. And I kind of lean more towards wanting to be on that cutting edge and figure out how AI can drive down the cost of production, and how even in our studio, how we can integrate it in to drive down the cost of production so our clients benefit from it to a higher level, but not necessarily take away jobs. It essentially just gives people more ability to be creative in a more rapid amount of time.
Exactly. I mean, that means it's easier to get into. It doesn't require that big giant company of a studio in order to make that happen, where us independent producers can have those tools and we can get launched right away without needing a whole bunch of capital. I mean, or even for someone who might be, I used to do a lot of, I would say AD, so assistant directing, but assistant director is more the project manager. You got to build the time sheets and the call sheets and the schedules. But then I found something called Studio Binder, and it did everything for me. And I'm like, wow, so if this exists, then there might be some other tools, like as I grow, How can I manage my procurement? How can I manage my how do I manage all the forms and keeping multiple revisions of scripts and so forth and so on? And I'm beginning to even see, even at this show, that there are people who have those products, who have those tools, and it's just about a matter of making those connections to say, oh, I could actually use that.
Yeah. So paint a picture for me. So as far as like this collective and open source community, how does that look? How are people working together? Kind of things are they creating? What is the long-term sustainability plan for how it all comes together?
That's I would love to. I have an idea though, and it's not going to just take my idea. It's going to take a lot of ideas throughout. I mean, it being open source. I mean, that's how open source works. It's not just one brilliant mind. It utilizes the group think really. And so the way that I'm seeing it is that we use the tools that we have and the communities that we already have. So Seattle Film Summit becoming more of a broader summit at whole of a creative community. We start to utilize that. We have a forum right now that anybody can join and anybody can go to. You don't necessarily have to be a filmmaker to do that. And that is open in order to start those conversations. And then I'm in talks with folks and how do we build more of that community to make those connections? So we have network events, but maybe networking events might not be for everybody. So is there a way that we can use those types of things where we make it more valuable? So let's bring on, we have 30 people who might be doing a happy hour, but let's bring on an entertainment lawyer, for example. And let's just have him talk for like 30 minutes and then we party for the rest of the time. Or it might be something where we just do an event where people just show up and we do free headshots. So it then becomes more usable to the community in addition to being a networking type of event. And then hopefully throughout those connections, people can kind of start to see how they can collaborate and build things together.
Yeah. I've actually put a lot of thought in that too, even when I reached out to Ben Andrews over at the Seattle Film Summit. And we talked about some opportunities there because, again, we just built out a large studio in Seattle. It's a live broadcast studio. And so we've been looking for ways that we can connect to the community in a way that could help jumpstart some of that stuff. Because within the building, there's several people that do a lot of corporate stuff, work on the projects that they're hired to do, but really don't have the creative outlet to really like go after why they got into the industry in the first place, which is to create creative ideas and films and independent projects. So we have been like exploring that even in our studio space to look for what kind of opportunities is that? What does it look like? How do we minimize the cost that it causes us, but then still give opportunities to other people who might not be able to have access to gear or studio spaces? So we've been kind of looking at that as well, to try to figure out how it is. So there could be some like idea sharing that could happen around that as well. So that's really cool. Like I love the idea. I love the concept. So where do you think the roadmap is right now, and how does the rest of the roadmap come together?
Again, great question and a lot of good stuff to think about. But I can definitely foresee us growing and using this connection of a community in something that could be deliverable by the end of the year,
Hmm.
like realistically, because again, these tools are already out there. And once we start launching these types of events, then hoping those connections can happen, it doesn't really take that much more than to hop into the actual project and content creation,
Hmm.
especially now since content creation is just so easy to do.
Yeah. One thing I even thought about is hosting at an event like that, like a script competition, and then come up with a short film that's basically low budget that could be shot leveraging some AI, leveraging some polished talent that 'cause everything has to usually be polished with AI, at least in my opinion, what I've seen right now. So basically having a competition and having a community come together, and then each month or each quarter, then basically you'll start working, it'll probably be quarter, but basically have people start working on stuff using each other's resources to kind of collaborate just to get people's ideas out there. One thing I saw, I go back and forth to LA a lot. I see teams of friends that are essentially like, all right, when you get your script ready, I'll come help you and I'll run a position and a role. And then when later on, I'll get my script and my stuff going. And then this whole friend group that I have come and help produce mine and volunteer time. And they just volunteer for each other. And oftentimes they'll put up like maybe 10 grand for other resources and things to help accomplish it. But then they'll end up getting a really cool looking little short film that they'll enter into film festivals. And I've seen that like down there, it's like, it's happening all the time and everywhere. And if we could see some of that community and that kind of like system emerge here, that would be amazing to try to like work on stuff like that. And then with even your stuff that you're talking about, the project incorporating AI, incorporating new best practices, you'd probably get a group of people that pioneer the new way of doing things with the new tech and the new technologies and stretching their boundaries. So there's some really cool stuff I could see down the pipeline with that.
Yeah, for sure. And the other thing I do want to mention right quick is a bit of a shout out to our admin folks to actually help organize, because us creative people, it's basically, we use the term herding cats.
Yeah.
And I've been, as I said, I've been an assistant director at times, and it has felt like that. I was a production coordinator on a $3 million project that we did a few years back here in Washington State. Half Washington crew, half LA crew. And while it was an amazing experience for me, it was also like being in the middle of a hurricane.
Uh-huh.
And I think the only reason why I was able to handle it is because I'm a project manager that's my day job.
Uh-huh.
So I was able to kind of help use like both parts of my brain to be like, okay, I know how to put a schedule together. I know how to do a breakdown. I know those types of things. And I'm just there to help with all of the other creatives and help that, just let them do their thing and just know that the schedule is just going to be there. And I think without those types of people who are here, you know, there are folks who have like project management experience in the entertainment community. It's just they're probably not as well known, because they don't have the sexy job of running a camera or being a director. There's something called a line producer that people around here may not know about, but in LA they know it's a vital position, and without it, they just don't get stuff done.
So with that, then one of the biggest questions that comes out of that: are you an admin or a cat?
It depends on the project.
Uh-huh.
If I'm an actor, then I'm definitely cat. Just tell me, point me where to go, and I'll just go.
Uh-huh.
But as a producer, I'm very much, I have to put on that admin hat on and know the big picture, and then just keep moving forward.
Yeah, I'd put myself in the same. It depends on the situation. Totally depends. If I'm put in a lead position, I got to be an admin. I'll definitely be an admin. If I'm low responsibility, no deadlines, then I'm a cat.
For sure.
Well, how do people get in touch with you if they want to reach out, talk more about this project? How do they get a hold of you?
Easiest way to reach me is at my email. My email is pretty much public by now, djn206@gmail.com. But the best way is also to look up my project, which is called the IHPA Project.com. And I'm also on Instagram at the IHPA Project. And I don't want to actually go too much into what that means. I want people to just go there and find out, because that's kind of part of the allure of this project. So IHPAproject.com, just check that out, and you'll see why it's there.
Great. Thanks so much for being on. It was so much fun talking and kind of riffing some ideas off there, and really excited. I'd love to see this project.
Yeah, thank you.
Really coming.
And thank you for you guys for doing what you're doing. It's this type of stuff. Like, I remember public access back in the day, and I sorely miss that. I think this is a forum that even creatives and the corporate community and everybody else can definitely utilize.
Great. Well, thanks for coming on. Great meeting you.
Thank you.